Have you ever noticed how one small comment, just one, can mess up your whole mood? Like you were doing fine, everything was normal, and then someone says something, maybe they didn't even mean it like that, and suddenly it's stuck in your head. You keep replaying it over and over, even hours later, maybe even at night when you're trying to sleep. And it's weird, right? Because logically, you know it shouldn't matter that much. But it does, and that's the part nobody really explains properly. Why does something so small feel so heavy? Why does someone else get that kind of access to your mind? And the truth is kind of uncomfortable, because it's not really about what they said. It's about the fact that somewhere along the way, you got used to letting things in without questioning them. Like your mind just stays open all the time. No filter, no boundaries, everything comes in. Every opinion, every tone, every little reaction. And you absorb it like it's important. Like it deserves your attention. And most of the time, it really doesn't. But you don't realize that in the moment. You just react instantly, emotionally, automatically, like it's a reflex. And that's how people end up controlling your mood without even trying. Not because they're powerful, but because you never decided what actually deserves your energy. And I've seen this happen so many times. People trying to explain themselves to someone who already misunderstood them on purpose. People overthinking conversations that the other person forgot 5 minutes later. People giving so much time and emotional effort just to be seen or respected. And it rarely works the way they hope, because respect doesn't come from explaining yourself over and over. It comes from knowing when to stop, and that's where things start to change. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but quietly, almost subtly. When you start catching yourself in those moments, when you feel that urge to react, to defend, to jump in and say something, and instead you pause, just for a second. And that pause feels strange at first, almost uncomfortable, like you're holding back something you're used to releasing. But inside that pause, there's something powerful happening. You're choosing, maybe for the first time, whether this situation even deserves you. And most of the time, if you're honest, it doesn't. It really doesn't. And once that realization starts settling in, your behavior begins to shift without you forcing it. You stop responding to everything. You stop feeling responsible for correcting every misunderstanding. You stop chasing clarity from people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. And it's not that you don't care anymore. It's just that you care differently, more selectively, more intentionally. And yeah, some people will notice that change. Some will feel it immediately, because they were used to getting a reaction from you. They were used to your explanations, your energy, your attention, and now it's not the same. Now you're calmer, quieter, harder to read, and that can confuse people, sometimes even frustrate them, because they don't have the same access anymore. And honestly, that's kind of the point, because not everyone deserves that level of access to you. Not everyone deserves to influence your peace. And once you really understand that, not just hear it, but actually feel it, something shifts inside you. You start letting things go faster, not because you're forcing yourself to be positive, but because you genuinely don't see the value in holding on to it anymore. And that's a different kind of freedom. It's not loud. It's not something you announce. It's just there, steady, quiet, and real. And if you're starting to feel that even a little bit right now, then don't just brush it off. Pay attention to it, because that's where the change begins, not in big dramatic decisions, but in small moments where you choose not to react the way you used to. And if you've ever felt drained by people, by situations, by things that shouldn't have mattered this much, then maybe this is your sign to start choosing differently, even if it's just one moment at a time. And here's where it gets a little more real, because once you start seeing this clearly, you can't unsee it. You begin noticing your own patterns, the times you gave attention to things that didn't deserve it, The moments you stayed in conversations longer than you should have. The situations where you knew, deep down, this isn't worth it. But you stayed anyway, maybe out of habit, maybe out of emotion, maybe just because you didn't want to seem rude. And that awareness can feel uncomfortable at first, not in a bad way, but in an honest way. Because now you recognize that your peace was never really taken from you. You were just giving it away without realizing it. And the good part about that is if you were the one giving it away, you can also be the one who stops. And that's where this mindset becomes real. Not just something that sounds good, but something you actually live. Because being mentally untouchable doesn't mean nothing ever bothers you. It doesn't mean you become cold or disconnected. It just means you become more aware of what you allow to stay in your mind. You don't hold on to everything anymore. You don't give every thought the same importance, and that changes everything. The way you talk, the way you listen, the way you respond, even the way you feel at the end of the day. Because you're not carrying unnecessary weight anymore. And there's something really peaceful about that, something steady. Like things don't shake you as easily as they used to, and people notice that too. Even if they don't say it directly, they feel the difference. Because your energy isn't as reactive. You're not jumping into every situation the same way. You're more grounded, more in control. And that doesn't come from pretending. It comes from practice. From those small moments where you pause instead of reacting, where you choose silence instead of explanation, where you let something pass instead of holding on to it. And over time, those small choices start building something strong inside you, something consistent, until one day you realize you're not the same person you used to be. Things that once bothered you don't have the same effect anymore. Not because they changed, but because you did. And that's the part most people overlook. They try to change everything around them. But the real shift happens when you change how you respond to it. And if you've made it this far, if you're still here reading this, then there's probably a reason. Something in this connected with you, maybe in a quiet way, maybe in a way you can't fully explain yet, and that's okay. You don't need to have it all figured out right now. Just start noticing, start paying attention to where your energy goes, what affects you, what stays in your mind longer than it should, and slowly, without forcing anything, start choosing differently, even if it's just once a day. Because that's how this builds, not overnight, not perfectly, but gradually, naturally, in a way that actually lasts. And if this made you think about something, or reminded you of a situation you've been holding on to, then maybe it's time to let that go, not for anyone else, just for you. Because your peace is worth protecting, even in small ways. And if you feel like this is something more people need to hear, share it with someone who might be going through the same thing. Sometimes one simple shift in perspective can change a lot more than we expect. If you really want to take this mindset seriously and not just treat it like something interesting you heard, then start applying it in the smallest possible moments of your daily life. Because this isn't about suddenly becoming a different person overnight. It's about training your mind to stop reacting automatically to everything that tries to pull your attention. The next time someone says something that normally would irritate you, don't rush to answer. Don't rush to defend yourself. Just pause for a few seconds and notice what's happening inside you. Because in that pause, you're either going to react like you always did, or you're going to create space for control. And that space is where your real power starts to grow. And the more you practice it, the more you'll realize most things don't actually deserve your emotional energy. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every situation deserves your involvement. And not every person deserves access to your thoughts. And when you start filtering life like that, something changes quietly, but deeply. You stop feeling mentally overloaded. You stop carrying conversations in your head for hours. You stop replaying disrespect or misunderstandings like they define you. And instead, you begin to move with a kind of calm clarity that doesn't depend on what's happening around you, but on how you choose to respond to it. And yes, at first, it will feel unnatural because your mind is used to reacting, used to explaining, used to proving itself. But over time, you'll notice a shift where silence becomes strength instead of discomfort, where distance becomes protection instead of isolation, and where letting go becomes freedom instead of loss. And that's the point where you're no longer emotionally available to everything and everyone. You become selective, grounded, and aware. And once you reach that stage, people will still act the same, situations will still happen, life will still be unpredictable, but your inner world won't be shaken the way it used to be. And that is what it really means to be mentally untouchable. Not that nothing affects you, but that nothing controls you anymore.